We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in-depth film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane page. I am your host, Shane Half. You can follow me on Twitter at Shane Half NFL, and I am joined by BGN's own film guru, Jonny Page. Give him a follow on Twitter at JohnnyPage9. Jonny, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. We are early this week. I mean, earlier. If any takes are bad from me, I haven't eaten dinner yet, and I'm a hungry man. So anything that I say wrong is due to my lack of food, because normally we record a little bit later for me. Any UK football fans out there, we are recording early this week. Thank you for yourself to being a legend, because the second we finish this and the second I finished up writing for Bleeding Green, I am getting off to watch the Arsenal play a massive game. So it's a week of big games. Eagles-Ravens is a huge game, and yeah, Arsenal play a massive game. So my sports nerves are high because that Ravens game was stressful. That was one of the most stressed I've been this year, watching it at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning. But huge win. And this team just keeps winning. It reminds me, Shane, when we started the podcast or when we started speaking, the Eagles were on a really good run and we just seem to keep winning. And I'd start the pod by the Eagles win, and we break down the win. And then it all got really dark and we sucked for a bit and everyone got fired except Sirianni. And then we thought we maybe wouldn't be this good this year after what we 2-2. But we are back to, I'd like to the ratio of pods that we've done compared to wins. It must be pretty astronomically high, except for that complete meltdown at the end of last year. It feels like we just break down a lot of wins, which, what more can you want?
It's always fun. I was going to say, this is our 60th episode, but I guess there's off-season episodes in there. Yeah. So we can't just look at the record over the last 60 games. But it's always more fun to break down a win than a loss. It's makes for good film shows when you can win games and yet look like garbage for the first quarter. So there's things you can point out in that as well. I said when we were watching the game, if you the first quarter is not for the faint of heart. And so if you just want to ride the positivity for Eagles games, just tune in after the first quarter and, it's a really good experience.
It is a real thing. I got one comment on Bleeding Green, and my BGN comments are also awesome. They're always awesome. I talk to a lot of good people in there, but someone saying I've been BGN'd, I think saying I've got negative because I was talking too much about the Eagles' early struggles. And it's the best thing about being an analyst, that's the way I pronounce it, is when things come right. It's last week I had a great section in the Bleeding Green article about Avonte Maddox's problem with route distribution, and then the first play this week is just a nightmare, and I'm like, yep, that's sort of what we do here. When we win, we want to talk about things that we think are going to be problems going forward, and we also obviously talk about what's good, and when we lose, we talk about the things that are positives and also the things that went wrong. It's the same thing whether we win or lose, really. It just means that it's a little bit more positive spin to look at things that you can improve even when you're winning. But there are definitely things in this game that the Eagles need to clean up. The comment I got actually was I commented saying that I don't want this Eagles team to start this slowly in the NFC title game against the Detroit Lions and be 10-0 down. And someone commented saying, well, we were basically 9, or you don't say nil, do you, Americans? 9-0.
Same thing. We know what you mean.
Yeah, 9-0 down to the Ravens, and we came back and won. And I was like, yeah, but every game's different. I don't want to play the Lions with a 10-point handicap. There's going to be a game against a really good team and you can't start the way they do. But anyway, that'll be one of our points today. But yeah, I think it's nice when some of the things we pointed out on the film thread starts to come to fruition. I spoke a lot about counter in the run game and gap scheme, and that was the most obvious counter game of all time. So it's good. It's good. We're at the stage of the year when I feel like we've got a really good idea of what the Eagles are running. So when they do things differently, we can sort of comment on them. But except for that, I feel like we're pretty good at this point at judging sort of what we see, because I feel like we sort of know what to expect now from Fangio and Kellen Moore.
Yeah, for sure. We do have a comment I'll address here real quickly before we dive in. Brett Eclipse asked, what's wrong with Avonte Maddox? I get injuries, derailed him physically, but he's now messing up assignments as a vet with years of experience in Fangio systems. I don't know, but you literally can't justify ever putting him on the field for another snap. He's that bad. I was a Maddox guy, and I thought in the preseason he looked good at safety. Yeah. I don't know, but he's unplayable.
Not to be the wait and see, but he's going to come he's going to come up in one of my points. So I will speak a little bit about Maddox later. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in. Jonny, do you want to start off on offense or defense this week?
I feel like maybe I'm wrong. Everyone would go mad if we didn't do defense first. Is that not fair? This feels like a defense week.
Sure, let's do it.
Because it was a hell of a performance, because the Ravens' offense is unbelievable. And oh my God, some of the Mars throws were incredible. So let's go with the defense. Do you want to start us off this week?
Yeah, I'll start us off. And I'm going to start us off with our player spotlight. Our Patreon community selected by the narrowest of margins Milton Williams over Jalen Carter for our player of the week. And he had an incredible game this week. And unfortunately, I think Milton Williams has very solidly played himself out of the Eagles' price range for next season. I would be very surprised if he, A, is on the Eagles roster, and B, if he doesn't at least fetch them that maximum third-round compensatory pick. So, it's always nice when you can take a guy, I think he was a third-round pick, and then turn it into a third-round comp pick down the road. And I think that's where the Eagles are headed here. But he was good in really every aspect of the game. And here on this first play on the screen, number 93 here at the far right, this is a tackle overlook from the Ravens. And so both of the guys on the end here are tackles. This is a tight end. So little funky look here. And he just takes on, I think it's Ronnie Stanley, and just totally stands him up and is able to make a play in the run game. And so he's not just a pass rusher, but he's got some really good pass rush moves. Here's one right here where he's able to chase Lamar Jackson. And I don't show the side view of this throw, but I did on Twitter. And that route that Lamar tries to throw is wide open early in the rep. And Milton Williams flushing him from the pocket gives, I think it was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, time to close on Isaiah Likely there. On this next one, you're going to see him rushing against the guard here, and it's got a nice pass rush move. He's blatantly held right there. Don't know how you don't flag that. He could have had several sacks in this game if not for this. Here's another one. He's going to, again, be blatantly held. This one's really annoying because it's the Lamar, 39-yard scramble. And maybe this wasn't holding. Maybe his jersey just magically sticks to the offensive lineman's open hand. That's definitely not dragging him to the ground there. Who knows? But Milton Williams was incredible in this game. Now, there's no doubt that he's massively benefiting from playing next to Jalen Carter. He is catching one-on-one looks all the time. And we can't just say, though, that that's the only reason he's winning, because there's any given snap, 2 to 3 defensive linemen are getting one-on-one reps. So he gets them at a higher rate than most defensive tackles in the league do, because he plays next to Jalen Carter, but he's winning. I think I heard somebody say that he's got the highest pass rush win rate among interior defensive linemen. I'm not sure where that stat came from, because it's not listed on ESPN's pass rush win rate metric board. Maybe he doesn't qualify based on snaps. I'm not sure. But he had a career high 9 pressures in this game. His previous career best was 3. So he tripled his highest pressure rate game. Milton Williams had an awesome game, and he's really had several of them back to back.
Man, I'm not a stats guy. He had 9 pressures. He hit 9 this week. Oh my goodness, man. I knew he was good from the film. I struggled to analyze any defensive lineman, because I think there was a comment earlier on about it all goes through Jalen Carter, and that's basically how I see the defensive line. But yeah, the Eagles can't afford to pay him if they're going to have other defensive linemen they're going to pay, because Carter's going to cost the biggest defensive lineman contract in history, because he's an absolute star.
That's literally a 33% pressure rate in this game.
Yeah, that's absurd. Yeah, I liked how you got your ref dig in there, even though we haven't even started Shane's officials suck point, and he still threw one in there early on. Yeah, Milton's he's always been a good player. He's been a good player since they drafted him. Wasn't he the guy or was it, I think there's someone else, when Howie Roseman had an argument with someone in the meeting room?
Yes,
because they wanted
Tom
to draft
Donahue.
someone else. Yeah, that's the guy.
And you know who it was? I'm almost positive. I need to double check this now.
It was a nobody, wasn't it? Milton's
no. I'm pretty sure it was Aleem McNeil, who's also a stud for the Lions. I'm going to look that up now, though.
Oh, fair enough. I'm sure the comments will tell us. But yeah, Milton's good. Milton's always been very good. He's basically been very good since they drafted him. He can play a number of roles. I would absolutely love to keep him, don't get me wrong. But I think the way they rotate behind Jalen Carter means he's probably, as you said, going to price himself out of the Eagles market. Yeah, comments are confirming what you said, by the way, just in case you're wondering.
I thought that was right because I stood with Tom Donahue because I also really wanted Aleem McNeil in that draft. And I was mad when he came off the board. And he's more of your run guy, but man, he's been really good. I guess there was no wrong pick there. They've both been fantastic players.
Yeah, the answer is the Eagles scout well. Right, I'm going to go on to my first point, which is going to be I looked at what one to start with. And seeing as we've got a comment about Maddox, I will mention him. I'm going to start with backups, I guess. This is where I find that analysing football so hard and analysing sports in general so hard. So I always think a really good sign of a good coaching staff that knows exactly what they're doing is when backups come up and they look good, because you don't get the reps. Fangio is a huge believer in reps. Like you can see him in his press conferences talk about getting reps. Like I think him and Sirianni had an argument and stuff, or a disagreement over playing time of players in the offseason. That came out. I saw articles for BGN this week about it. And Avonte Maddox, I don't want to be too harsh because like I like Maddox and I've liked him, but he's basically played 4 snaps like the last 2 weeks and they've all been absolute disasters and the opposition have gone after him every single time. So I knew this live. So I posted this to sound very smart on Twitter this week. I mentioned this last week on the podcast and I wrote it for Bleeding Green. And I typically didn't save what I wrote, but I basically wrote something saying along the lines of the Eagles cannot keep playing Avonte Maddox. He only played 2 snaps this week, and it's clear that there is an issue every single time he's on the field with their distribution and communication. And whether it's because he played safety in the offseason, I don't know what's happened, but physically he's not great anymore. But forget the physical side of it. There's just coverage busts. So I wanted to talk about 2 players, talk about why it's so hard to analyze sports. Because if you were just to watch Avonte Maddox, you think the coaching staff can't teach backups anything. So we'll start with Maddox. I'm not going to show the one that he gets beat by Aguilar because it was Aguilar who dropped it, wasn't it? Yeah. Which won't surprise many Eagles fans. We'll start with the play that I think is played 2 on my film, Fred. You've probably got it up as well. So without being in the meeting room, I don't know how the Eagles are meant to play this. So I'm not going to pretend to act like it's absolutely Maddox at fault. And to be honest, even if it's not Maddox at fault, it's sort of not the point. It's the point that when they're in their dime package, it feels like they don't know what they're doing. So Isaiah Rodgers is definitely running across the field here. And it basically ends up with 3 Eagles defenders taking 1 crossing route. And Mark Andrews is literally wide. Like this would have been a 75 or 65-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. I don't think anyone's catching him because the deep safety is going to the other side of the field. I genuinely think if this ball's in front, this is a touchdown. And in a game of fine margins, you give up a huge touchdown like that, it could be very different. What's worse is Maddox also holds the guy, even though there are 3 guys chasing after him. And like, at least don't hold him because you've got 3 guys going after him. If you're watching on the video, watch Isaiah Rodgers' reaction, Shane, at the very, very end of the All-22. I think players often tell a story. Number one, he's completely confused. And when he goes back, he looks around, he puts both his hands up as if to be like, where the hell are you? And that's never a good sign, is it? It's never a sign that someone is doing the right thing. And Fangio's defense has got a reputation of being confusing. It's one reason why it takes time to win over. We saw it this year. There was a lot of coverage problems in the first 3-4 weeks of the season. It makes me a little bit concerned about how many of those were Maddox related because I haven't seen Cooper DeJean make many coverage busts. So to answer the question we had earlier on from Breaded Lips, I have no idea what's going on. Whether it's because he's playing in dime, whether it's because he's used to playing like as a starter and his head mentally, physically, he can't handle being a backup and just coming in for 1 or 2 snaps. Because you've got to think of it as a professional athlete, that's not easy to do. Just rock up in the game on obvious passing downs twice a game. Like whether he's not getting into the feel of the game, whether he's overthinking, I don't know. But it's not an exaggeration to say he's unplayable because every single snap goes to the wrong. Basically, is like wrong. If he's in man coverage, he gets beat. If he's in zone coverage, he makes a mistake. Like it pretty much couldn't have gone worse for him. But I do want to end with like a good bit of coaching backups. I thought Tristan McCollum was really good in this game.
Anthony left a comment here, and I was going to mention this. If this happened, if Jalen Hurts was the quarterback for a play that was designed to go to the other side, but this would be screenshotted and trotted out by everybody in national media around about why Jalen Hurts is such a bad quarterback. But
yeah, the weird thing is actually, although Lamar's going the wrong way, I'm not a big screenshot guy. I think Lamar probably should see it because I think if he's watching the middle of the field and he sees like Rodgers, a linebacker, and Maddox all going after the same guy, there must be a tiny part of his brain like, hang on a minute, who the hell's covering the guy on in the flat? So it's a weird one. Anyway, I thought Tristan McCollum was awesome. I don't know what you thought of him, but I thought he looks really, really good. And play 13 on my film thread, he does a fantastic job dropping the interception on 4th down because he knows they'll lose yardage. And it was a great tip, and it was not at all a dropped pick. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm watching this rep, like, hello, this is like really, really good stuff. So he's looking over his shoulder. When you're pedaling in zone coverage, he's basically taken away like 2 receivers in like match zone here. This is a really high-level play from a safety. So they've rotated single high. He's in the middle of the field. He's in like one of those hook zones. He gets really good depth. I think the Eagles have got really good at getting depth. And actually, a little schematic nerd point. I think the Eagles did not get enough depth in the first half. And I think Lamar killed them over their heads. And I think second half, they got a lot better depth. And they basically gave up the throws in front of them and rallied to the football. And I think credit to Fangio and the coaching staff for recognizing that Lamar was taking shots that other quarterbacks wouldn't take, because Lamar hit 2 or 3 insanely good high-low throws in this game where he threw it directly over the heads of the linebackers. Now, this makes me think that even if McCollum is the 3rd safety, just put him in dime. Move people around. Like, basically change that package so you don't need to use Avonte Maddox as much, because he looks really good when he plays and he's incredibly physical as well. There's a lot of comments about where's Sidney Brown. I think the basic answer is he's probably not learnt the scheme as well. He tore his ACL and he's been out a long, long time, and McCollum seems to have a better grip. Comment coming in saying he stood out to him in the preseason. And yeah, I agree. I'm trying to find an article right now since you said that, but I remember specifically mentioning that I liked him in the preseason, and I think a lot of people were very, very much expecting him to make the roster because of how he played. So,
okay.
Yeah, I've got my...
Can I break in for a second?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, I'll shut up about Tristan McCollum, the Eagles, like 3rd safety. We wonder why we go long on this podcast.
This is so good. Like, it's a dagger really concept. Is. So you've got the route to run it off, and then you've got the dig route behind. Watch Cooper DeJean and watch Tristan McCollum, because Tristan McCollum looks at Cooper DeJean, who is pointing mid-play. Like, he's looking over his shoulder, and DeJean is pointing to the middle of the field. Like, Tristan McCollum's looking for it. Cooper DeJean is telling him to go to the middle of the field. And this is all happening mid-play, like between a starter and a backup. Like, if he does this to Reed Blankenship, that's an impressive play. He's doing this to a guy that he literally never takes reps with on a given week in practice. Like, it's such a good rep by Cooper DeJean. It's such a good job by Tristan McCollum. And like you mentioned, such a cerebral play to just knock that down instead of intercepting it.
He joins other superstars in the Eagles' defensive backfield like Quinion Mitchell with elite ball skills. Quinion, he should have had one in this game as well. Yes, so my second point was going to be about backups and how we talk about minor things making a difference. Like, Avonte Maddox played 2 snaps this game, and it could have made a big difference on the game. So if you're talking about being at your elite to beat the Chiefs, to beat the Lions, to beat the very, very best in the NFL in the playoffs, the Eagles need to basically get every little bit out of the team as they can. And right now, Maddox is a problem, and that dime package needs to be looked at, because whatever they're doing, it's not working right now.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments rolling in here. It's always great that we've got like such regular listeners, that we've got guys in the chat being like, where's so-and-so? And then they pop into the chat because they're so used to chatting during the show. So love that. A few comments I want to get to here. Connor asked, will teams pay Milton Williams a high dollar amount, or will they contribute some of his success to lining up beside Jalen Carter? I think both. I mean, teams aren't stupid, but also teams are going to be like, hey, he can win one-on-one consistently. We can scheme things up to make that happen. So T. Grant asked, do you think Jalen Carter goes around the locker room collecting taxes from Milton Williams, Nolan Smith, and I'm not sure what typo led to that being friendship, but he should if he is not. Brett Eclipse says that he's going to get a Valentine's card that says, are you Jalen Carter? Because I need to hold you. We're going to get to that, I promise. And then Anthony, they were talking about how BG was the first guy off the sideline to give Tristan McCollum a hug, and said BG is the best teammate ever. So you love to see all that stuff. Good culture, all of those things. So let me dive into my second point, because like we said, we always tend to go long. And
yeah, Shane, just really quickly before we do,
okay.
If you want the culture of talking to us on air for the whole week, if you're not on the Patreon, please jump in for $3 a month, because the Discord is good. I'm going to start calling him the Disco Boys, which is something that I heard a friend of mine say to his membership. He's got a Patreon as well, with Disco. So the Disco Boys, which is my new favorite phrase. But yeah, we talk about football every day, and it's much better than Twitter. And you get to know people. So support the show, but it's really, although it is supporting the show, it's also just nice to talk to people on a much more human level than Twitter gives you. But anyway, this is why we take too long. So go, give me a second point.
I was literally breaking down how Sean McVay ran a bubble screen because somebody asked for it in our Discord this week. I never thought I'd be breaking down Sean McVay's bubble screens when it's not against the Eagles, but there we go. So I'm going to stick on the defensive line, and I'm going to talk about another guy that I thought had a really good game, and it's Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis was awesome in this game. I just want to show a couple of plays of him against the run, and his pass rushing ability has been disappointing that hasn't developed, but he allows the Eagles to do some cool things in run defense. And so you've seen this play earlier. It's the tackle overlook, and I focused on Milton Williams. Look at Jordan Davis right next to him. Jordan Davis takes on a double team from a tackle and a guard and literally does not move. Like, his feet don't even come up. Like, he doesn't even take a shuffle backwards. That's incredible. He anchors there, and they're able to get the stop. And so much of stopping this offense for the Ravens, it starts with neutralizing Derrick Henry. On this play, he's going to swim to the outside, and he doesn't get the stop, but he gets the initial penetration that messes up the play. And then they're going to try to block him one-on-one here, which is certainly a decision in the run game. And he totally just stands up the left guard and, again, does not move off the spot and sheds to make the tackle on Derrick Henry. I could show more plays. They all look the same. And so in the interest of being not as long, I won't show a lot more. I tweeted some more, but he was awesome in the run game. And in this game, the Ravens had 13 carries for 51 yards when Jordan Davis was on the field. They had 14 carries for 115 yards with him off the field. Now, that does include the 39-yard scramble where Milton Williams was held, cough, cough. If you remove that play, though, it's still 13 carries for 76 yards versus 13 carries for 51 yards. It's 5.5 yards per carry versus a little under 4 yards per carry. Jordan Davis made a big impact in this game as a run defender. And that's really valuable when you might face a team like the Lions in an NFC Championship game who wants to run the ball and is used to bullying people in the trenches. I just don't know if they'll be able to do that against the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to combine my second point in with Davis. I don't think it's any coincidence in the slightest that Jordan Davis had his best game of the season after Brandon Graham was out, because although that sounds weird to say, the Eagles went to a lot more five-man fronts. What I love about Vic Fangio is the fact that he will rotate every week what he's doing and he will change it up. So my second point is going to be looking at the front. So the big question I asked Shane was, what do the Eagles do without Brandon Graham? Do they keep kicking someone inside? They did a little bit of everything this week. So I haven't got videos of all the plays because I can't film everything. And also showing clips take forever. But I saw Jalix Hunt inside on one play. He got moved. I don't know if you know the play I'm talking about, but he was moved by a double team. He did not handle being kicked inside that well. If you have it,
is this the play you're talking about?
It was in the red zone. And it was, yes, I bet it is. And yes, look, if you're watching, yeah, exactly this one. Yeah, the guy's moved big time. And I watched that and thought, yeah, they're not going to try that often again.
That's better than I would expect for a former safety taking on a double team.
And that's the thing. Yeah. Like, and it's not even his fault. It's nothing to do with him. It was just, I saw that and thought, yeah, I think Josh Sweat was kicked inside once as well. But the answer was basically base. What I love about Fangio is that he's not come from the philosophy of, remember we used to talk about Gannon and Desai, like, well, they'll give up 5-yard runs because that's what they do. That's what the Chargers, who was the Chargers guy who was terrible? Chargers DC.
Brandon Staley.
DC. Yes, just gives up short runs because it's not big plays. Fangio's the opposite. So I'll give you some stats. The absolute legend that he is, Dennis Salesman, who tracks some of their fronts, which I would do if I was a stats man as well. So I just watch it and I go, I know it, I just don't have the stats to back it up. But this is the Eagles' base, basically, personnel. When we say base personnel, we're talking that no Cooper DeJean on the field because they go 5-2-4. Essentially, 2 linebackers, 4 defensive backs. Now, they've barely done it. So, week 3, 27 times because Cooper DeJean wasn't there. When did Cooper DeJean walk in? Was it the Cleveland game? Was it week 6?
Yes, after the bye.
Yes. So, basically, since then, Face snaps 5, 7, 1, 3, 2. Yeah. Then 0 against the Rams. This week, 16. So Fangio is willing to go, do you know what? We are going to take Cooper DeJean off the field this week because we can't kick Brandon Graham inside, but we still need to stop Derrick Henry in the running game first and foremost. So we're going to do it by playing heavy fronts. I don't think it's any coincidence at all. Jordan Davis' best game of the year came with more 5-man fronts. That's what he's good at. He's always been an odd front guy, 2 defensive tackles either side of him, stick him at nose tackle, and he even gets one-on-ones. There was one really interesting snap in this game where I may even have the clip on my film thread, where they didn't double Jordan Davis on a running play, and they doubled Jalen Carter and Milton Williams, and then the tight ends basically took the 2 Eagles edge defenders. It was a really interestingly blocked play by the Ravens, but I just don't think it's a coincidence that one, Jordan Davis had his best game, and I'm not throwing shade at Jordan Davis. Like, that's what he is. He is a nose tackle that is better as part of a 5-man front. That's basically always been who he is. Yes, he can do some stuff as a one technique. Yes, he can do some stuff like as part of a 4-man front where he's double teamed, but he's just simply not the same, basically. So I wanted to add to your Jordan Davis point with the fact that I don't think it was just random, but this was his best game. And I also think as an adjustment-wise from Fangio, it was really interesting because we saw a lot of answers. We saw Sweat inside, we saw Jelix Hunt inside, we did see Bourne at edge, but not that much. The answer was basically just more Milton Williams and more 5-man fronts. And that should cause the Eagles issues in pass coverage because it limits essentially your ability to play split safety coverages. And it did early on. I thought the Ravens did have some success throwing early on, as I mentioned. And I was thinking that the Eagles are in a bit of a bind here. And I think I'm right in saying that Derrick Henry's best run of the game came on a set. I don't take notes for the podcast in case people are wondering. So this is all up here. I'm pretty sure Derrick Henry had a really long run, his longest run of the game, about 15 to 20 yards, where he ran to the left. And Quinion Mitchell was a little bit like, I'm not going to get involved in that one. And that was against the Eagles 4-man front. And it was because it was 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 9 or something. And the Eagles were like, right, we don't need to go heavy here because it's probably not going to be a run like we have on 1st and 10. And the Ravens caught them out. Just to back up what I was talking about, Shane, I'll show one play very quickly. If you look at play 6 on my film thread, so this is my favorite play by Jordan Davis, probably of the game. But he had quite a few plays like this. But watch how the Ravens block this. It's fascinating. So they basically leave the center one-on-one with Jordan Davis or the left guard, sorry, in this case. And they basically get doubles on Carter and whoever is next to Carter. I think it's Milton Williams. I do actually have the double angle for this play, so you can see it from the other side as well. And I think that's just really interesting that they chose to double the 2 either side and leave Jordan Davis one-on-one. Austin Commons is saying, does it result in less Cooper DeJean? It's not an either or because you can play Davis as part of a 4-man front. But yeah, if you're going to go a true odd front, not kick an edge inside, play a true odd front, there are 2 ways you can do it. You could go 5-1-5. So you could play a 5-man front, take off Nakobe Dean and just play Zach Bourne and then have 5 defenders. The reason why I don't like that all the time is because what often happens is your nickel corner ends up coming into the box anyway. So Cooper DeJean ends up being like a linebacker. And there's an argument that just play a linebacker instead. So, yeah, it could mean less Cooper DeJean, and we'll see. No, T. Grant, you're right. DeJean does not play in base, essentially. But this, I'm pretty sure if you look at DeJean's snap counts, he's been playing a really, really high amount. And this week was his lowest amount, basically since he's come into the lineup, because this was more 5-man front. And that is not a coincidence in the slightly. It's because Brandon Graham has gone. It's because Fangio had to adjust, and he adjusted, which was awesome to see. So, yeah, good Davis game, good Milton Williams game, really good Fangio adjustment game. Shows that there's more than one way to win. But it is worth noting that there may be some more 5-man fronts in the future. So maybe teams will start throwing more on early downs and not trying to run at the Eagles as much as the Ravens did.
Yeah, got a lot of comments here. Never want to take DeJean off the field. I mean, sometimes you just have to. Sometimes you can't play nickel, depending on what the opposing team's doing. But a comment from Kev on Twitter asked, do you think playing a power back suits us more than a running back who has moves and cuts? I actually don't. I feel like I would rather play a shifty back because the Eagles defense is so good in pursuit, but you do have some smaller guys like Nakobe Dean playing linebacker that I thought could be a problem bringing down Derrick Henry. We didn't see that really in this game, but I think I would rather play the shifty guy.
Yeah, can I very quickly talk about that as well? This was one of the best tackling games I've ever seen. Like, they really hit Henry hard. Jonty Gardner-Johnson had one. Nolan Smith had a couple. Cooper DeJean, obviously the famous player. We all know about that. Whatever the celebration is, whatever this is, if you're on video with all the bench doing it. But it was really, really, really cool to watch their tackling technique and also just the physicality they play with. I always say the basics need to be the fundamentals, as Sirianni talks about, have to be done no matter what the scheme is. And yeah, the fundamentals were really, really good this week.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep rolling here. I'm going to go to my last point, and it is Jalix Hunt. I wanted to talk about Jalix Hunt because he played about 10 or 11 more snaps than he did the previous 2 games. I think him going up 10 snaps and Nolan Smith going up 15 to 20 snaps is the Brandon Graham replacement right now. And I guess real quickly before I get to Jalix Hunt, this is an odds and ends that didn't fit in anywhere else, but I felt like the Ravens tried to read Nolan Smith on the read option game a lot in this one. They would leave him unblocked. He was the read guy. And I just think he's too athletic to do that. Like so many times he would break down and force Lamar to give it and then still have the athleticism to get in on a play on the running back. And so I thought that was really good from Nolan Smith. I could show you like a half dozen examples, but I only get 3 points, and I already am taking a bonus point this week. So there you go, no clips. But on Jalix Hunt, the first thing I wanted to show was him getting double teamed when he kicked inside, and that's just going to be tough for him to do, especially when he's catching 2 offensive linemen. So that was a rough rep. I wanted to show it, but I thought he had some really good reps too. Now, on this one, he's taking on a tight end, and it's worth pointing that out. But this is run defense, and what I love is there's going to be 2 pullers coming at him. And he recognizes, because one of the pullers is going outside, that this run wants to go outside. And so if you watch his helmet, he's going to flash his helmet to the outside right there. The running back is reading that and starts to cut up field. And there's a lane here, right? There's a lane to cut inside, but Jalix Hunt sheds, and it's a bad run by Justice Hill too, not to cut that up sharper. But he does a good job of flashing outside and then shedding inside to make the tackle. So I thought that was an example of him doing good in run defense. Here he's rushing off of the edge again, and he's going to get chipped by Mark Andrews, and he still beats the left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, who's a good left tackle, is able to get in and get the sack on Lamar Jackson. And he splits that one with Zach Bond. And then later, rushing off the right side against the rookie, Roger Rosengarten, he just forklifts him, like, boom, knocks him back into the pocket, gets held again. Like, for the love of all that's good in the game, can you call a holding penalty? It doesn't get a whole lot clearer than this one. I mean, watch this. That's not holding. And it allows Lamar to get out on a big scramble. And that should have been a sack to put him in 4th and long instead of a scramble to put him in 4th and inches. But I thought Jalix Hunt played well in this game too. Regardless of what his PFF grade said, he impressed me. And there are going to be some deficiencies in the run game with him. That's why it's important that you can have a Jordan Davis out there next to him at times to help take some of that pressure off. And the Eagles safeties and linebackers are so good flowing downhill, I think, that you can negate a lot of that. But Jalix Hunt showed some flashes, and he's a lot further ahead of where I thought he would be when they made the selection. I honestly didn't think he would play at all this year.
No, I didn't think he was ready. But at least he was a proper player, unlike Davion Taylor, who the Eagles may have taken a few years earlier, who I won't bring back up. Yeah, just really quickly, we get so many comments this week, so apologies we don't get to all of them. Well, I mean, we don't get to all of them, but it's awesome. But I promise we do read them all because my laptop is just sitting there open, staring at them all. Yeah, someone said about Jalix Hunt, like, what's the upside? The upside is like unbelievable because the athleticism is ridiculous. The ceiling is off the charts. So one thing I would say, and this is a bit of a weird point to make, I don't think the Eagles need edge rushers to be brilliant edge rushers. And that may sound like a weird fact, but like, I think the Eagles need edge rushers to win 1-on-1 and be able to drop into coverage and be athletic enough to stop the run. And I think they win with a lot of like this scheme. So they win with a lot of like whip. They win with linebacker blitzes. They win with like stunts and twists, and they win with Jalen Carter. So I don't think they have to have an elite pass rusher. I think the big question for Hunt will be, can he rush the quarterback on the edge? Can he bend? Can he dip? Can he rip? That was meant to be like a poem. But that's where the ceiling will be. And yeah, Matthew commenting saying that it's always nice when someone tells you what I said, that I was excited with him pre-draft. Yeah, like Excited would be one word. I basically remember saying I wouldn't have taken him where they took him. I think it was too high, but I can understand why they've done the risk. He is an incredible athlete, like long, thin. The big news is he hasn't looked weak in run defense, and that rep you showed. I know it's only a tight end, but he played that so well. And I remember watching that live and going, "Oh yes," because that was the concern I had. I'm not as worried about the rushing the quarterback stuff because I think naturally he has the length to do it. Again, I keep throwing in bonus points, but like as you are this week, Josh Sweat drops into coverage really well this game. Like Josh Sweat dropped into coverage like 3 or 4 times and made really good plays in coverage. So if they can teach Sweat how to do it, then they should be able to teach Hunt to drop into coverage. Just really quickly, this is what I wrote about him because I have to go back and find exactly what I think at the time. I said it's a huge risk. He's one of the most fascinating athletes I've ever seen because of his combination of length, speed, and quickness. He doesn't really look like an edge, but watching him drop into coverage and play the run is really cool. But I said he's a long way away from contributing as a pass rusher. The traits are there, but he needs a lot of work. I think he would take at least a year, and it's very possible, but that part of his game just doesn't really develop. But I said he can rush the quarterback, drop into coverage, and make the Eagles play with more versatility and unpredictability, which I think we're already seeing a little bit. Like, I think the question is, can he develop as a pass rusher? And if he can't, then the ceiling is limited. But I don't think this Eagles team needs like TJ Watt on the edge. They need like decent pass rushers who can drop into coverage. I mean, that would be awesome, but it's unlikely you get him. The arm length, as T Grant's saying, it's the length. It's the length that is out of this world. The length and athleticism. We've seen from Nolan Smith that you can develop over time. He's still not a great pass rusher, but he's an insanely athletic guy who plays really hard on every snap, and good things happen to those people. Right. I get into my final point on defense, which is, I'm just going to call it superstars. I think the Eagles have 2 superstars on defense. I think they have lots of very, very good players on defense. But I think, and stop misquoting nonsense. I'm getting done by Austin and Twitter now as well. I've not said that. I'm saying the Eagles maybe do not need a player like that. It's not.
Can you do me a favor and just read his quote for me so I can clip that later?
No, I refuse to. I'm not.
Okay, I'll read it then, so our podcast listeners can hear. But Austin is quoting Jonny here, saying, "quote TJ Watt wouldn't improve this defense." So there you go. It's in quotes. You must have said it. Sorry,
that's how the internet works. We need like a montage at the end of fake news on this podcast of stuff I have not said. Anyway, what was my final point going to be before I was sabotaged by the comments? Before I was sabotaged. Superstars. There we go. I said in the offseason, and I got a little bit of stuff for saying Jalen Carter could be Defensive Player of the Year. I think I got a few comments saying he hasn't proved it, and I think he might be proving it already. Forget like next few years. I don't think it's impossible he gets a vote this year. Like, I don't think it's the most absurd thing ever if he got a couple of votes for Defensive Player of the Year this year, because the last few weeks he's gone full on nuts. And the Eagles have another superstar, Shane. I don't think it's like, I wrote this in the blog, it's not like a nice story. It's not this guy's doing well, he's playing well, he's a good story. He is an absolute all-pro superstar, and that's Zach Bourne. The 2 of them are just elite players. Bourne's not a fluke. This is not like 4 weeks now, Shane, of good film. This is every single week except for the Falcons game of high level play. I only have anything that I'm going to show this week that I haven't shown before. So I'm not going to show loads of clips because I think everyone saw Zach Bourne blow up Derrick Henry in the backfield. I feel like everyone's seen Zach Bourne drop into coverage. Everyone's seen Zach Bourne win on a blitz as he did this week. I'm just going to show one Jalen Carter play, and I could show 15. Like, the one play I want to show, Shane, is number 3 on my film thread. Because I'm going to take you back in time, a little bit of a throwback. I was not an Eagles guy when I first started watching the NFL. Like, I was an Eagles fan, but I didn't make my money. I didn't make any money. I didn't make anything doing Eagles stuff. I was a draft guy. I was a classic come up in the league draft guy. And I had so many arguments with people online because I loved Aaron Donald. Like, Aaron Donald was my guy. I think I had him top 3, and I had lots of arguments with lovely people online who didn't like him. And I just said, the guy is electric. He's so fast. And immediately he came into the league and I was like, told you. And I feel like quick defensive lineman, undersized, I always fall in love with. I fell in love with Braden Fisk. Is it Braden Fisk or Brandon Fisk?
Yeah.
I think he's had a good year as well this year, by the way. Quick defensive lineman like that. I watched this play and I'm like, Oh, it's Aaron Donald. There you go. Quote that one out as well. Like this is Aaron Donald level of movement, Shane. Like this is utterly absurd. And I'm trying to concentrate while I'm getting cooked in the comment section from utter nonsense. But anyway, I'm just going to ignore it and keep talking for the podcast listeners. And Jalen Carter looks like a 290 pound defensive tackle here. Like that's what Aaron Donald was. He was what, 285 pounds? Jalen Carter was 314 pounds at the combine. One of my biggest regrets in life is that Jalen Carter didn't test at the combine, because I want to see those numbers, Shane. The numbers would be absolutely out of this world. He is 314 pounds, or he was at the combine, and he moves like Aaron Donald. I mean, his play is ridiculous. He looks like a long linebacker, like reaching out of his arms. Like, he's an absolute freak. If he's not Defensive Player of the Year nominations this year, he will get them next year. Wait for those sack numbers to come up. Like, nothing else to say about them except that they've got two real superstars. And I can't talk about the Bourne contract thing anymore because it just depresses me. Like, I need him to be signed. I don't think I can watch this Eagles defense without him next year, because it'll make me so sad, because they finally got an absolute superstar at linebacker and his money is going up every single week. And at some point, the Eagles are going to have to bite the bullet and just sign him, because he is that good.
Yeah. It really makes me sad that he didn't test and he didn't like run at pro days, because I want the RAS card.
Oh my God.
I'm never going to have an RAS card for him. And that makes me sad, but
he wouldn't have gone to 8 if he did test. I'm telling you that now, because true. My God, Shane, he is the big. I was genuinely watching it this week, and you have like one of those moments where you're like, what am I watching? Like, the guy doesn't move like normal human beings move. And I felt this last year, and I felt this since watching him in college. I thought he was the best player in the draft, and I think he's going to be the best player at the draft class, and I think he is just an absolute superstar. So there you go.
Yeah. Kev says not having to be the man from day one helped him a lot too. Fletch had a massive influence on him, and I could definitely see that as well. And we also continue to get lots of great misquotations of Jonny in the comments.
We're just not going to read them out. You have to be watching live to listen to them, or going to the YouTube comments after, or we'll be here all day. Can I just raise one comment? T Grant said about where was it? Made Lamar look scared at times. You only have this moment when in any sports you're watching two superstars on the field together, and like they're always talking because they know they're the best. So in English football, people talk about Ronaldo and Messi. Like when they play each other, they're always like communicating. He's always like, you can see the cameras are always on them. Did you see how many times Lamar and Jalen were talking after the snap, and they were laughing? They were both. Oh, it was almost like recognition of like ball knows ball. Like, you're really good, and you're really good, and you know that whichever one of us wins this battle is probably going to win the game, because we both know we're the best on our team. There was like that recognition where, do you know what I mean? It was like a bit of a psychological point, which you get that feeling watching it, like you're watching two superstars, and they know they're superstars, and they're laughing about how good they are on the field. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we get to the offense?
Yeah, we're going to have to pick up the pace here. But before we do, I've got a bonus point, and I'm just going to roll clips here of Jalen Carter being blatantly held for half the game while I give you some stats. So you guys can check this out. But going into this game, the Eagles were the 5th least penalized team in the NFL. So only 4 teams in the NFL commit less penalties than the Eagles. And yet they've only been flagged less times in a game than their opponents 2 times this season. Despite committing penalties at the 5th lowest rate in the league, they've been flagged 19 more times than their opponents. The other 4 teams to be flagged at least 15 more times than their opponents have committed 88, 89, 100, and 101 penalties. The Eagles have committed 66. The Ravens, by the way, are the most penalized team in the NFL, and they get the most holding calls in the NFL. 0 holding calls in this game. And I love how I put this out, and suddenly everyone's an expert on what a rip move is, and because it's true, holding is not a thing on a rip move, and you show like a overhand club move, and people are like, oh, that's a rip move, it doesn't count, whatever. Like, I took pictures, and only of 2 quarters, and only 1 player because I only get the behind you. And I showed several holdings on Jalix Hunt and on Milton Williams. Like, it is absurd that the Eagles are getting screwed over by the officials every week like this. And I'm not a talk about the officials guy. I'm the guy that several years ago, you have the no clear recovery game in Dallas, and that's what everybody wanted to whine about. And I was like, get over it. You had the whole game. Go play football and win. It's one play. It's absurd. And I'll end with a quotation from Vic Fangio in his press conference. Dave Zingaro tweeted this out. They asked Fangio if there's anything the Eagles can do to help Carter draw holding penalties. And Fangio's response was, I don't know. Do you have any ideas? And they did not. And then Vic Fangio went on and said, there was one play in particular where he was grossly held and pulled to the ground and there was no call. So yes, and I don't know what we can do about it. I love Vic Fangio so much because he's going to eat that fine from the league and he does not care. So shout out to Vic Fangio. And if anybody has some ideas, maybe we can get those to the Eagles on what they need to do to get a Jalen Carter holding penalty.
Yeah, I think that actually the Eagles have gone away the right way around it. Just flood Twitter and keep tagging the NFL. I think eventually the Eagles need to sell it better. Like the players need to sell. Like the one you showed earlier on, Milton Williams, doesn't complain about at all. If you don't complain, you don't get. But I love Vic Fangio, and I think the way they do not call holding on Jalen Carter has got a little bit silly. But Shane, have you heard that if you do a rip move, you can't get called for a holding? So maybe you should learn your NFL pass rushing technique, Shane, before you come at the NFL refs.
It's true. I have heard that about 84 times on Twitter, and most of them weren't rip moves to begin with. But
right, let's go. All
right, let's get over to the offensive side of the ball. Jonny, I'll throw it to you first because I just talked and I need to get a drink. So give me your first point.
Bad news. My first point is going to need you to start with a video clip for me, though, that I don't have, which is really helpful. So I want to start by talking a little bit of sequencing. Yeah, that's really helpful of me. I'm going to start by talking a little bit of sequencing, and this week's concept is QB draw. And I always think this about NFL playbooks. Anyone can write a cool playbook. Playbooks by themselves are sort of irrelevant. It's when you call plays. It's a feel of a game. And obviously you need good plays, but I mean, you can watch any NFL game on Sunday and go, that's a cool play. Let's stick it in the playbook. You have to be able to run it. You have to have the personnel for it, and you have to be able to sequence plays together. And I think the Eagles sort of suck in the first quarter, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I do think a lot of what they do early on in games is sequencing something down the line. And I think we saw it this week in a big spot. So the Eagles had a couple of plays where they threw to running backs in the flat. They did the usual Will Shipley play one snap in the first drive, then never play again, which is my favorite thing in the world. I've got no idea what it's all about, but it's like a really cool sequence now that I'm waiting to see the next part of the Will Shipley play. But the Eagles had a play earlier on where they motioned Saquon Barkley out and they threw it to him, almost like a screen pass in the flat. And I'm pretty sure you have this clip, Shane, because I do not. So this is it. The Eagles actually motion Dotson out, and then they throw it to Barkley right off the snap, and it ends up being essentially a swing pass with 3 men in front of him, and he gets a few yards. Nothing fancy. Very, very basic play, a little bit of motion, but essentially it's throwing it to Barkley with 3 guys in front of him. Fine, easy. You could look at this play and go, 5-6 yards, done. But the point of it is they know who they're playing, the Ravens. They know the Ravens are desperate to stop Saquon Barkley, in particular Roquan Smith, who was all over Barkley in this game, and a big third down on a really big game. The Eagles come back with a concept of the week, which is going to be QB draw. QB draw is a play that the Eagles rinsed 2 years ago in 2022 under Shane Steichen, and they were so good at it. They would go empty, run QB draw, and it would seem to work all the time. It hasn't worked that well since then. It feels like when the Eagles go empty and just run QB draw, teams have seen it coming, and they seem to be prepared for it. Whereas this week, they were not anywhere near as prepared for it on a huge third down. Do you need me to give you the number, Shane, or have you got it? No, he's got it.
I got it.
So look at how the Eagles are lined up. Different look, but 3 wide receivers or a tight end, whatever you want to call it. And they play this little fast motion, or what's it called by the Dolphins? Crab motion or whatever.
Shuffle motion.
Shuffle motion, crab motion, whatever you want to call it. And look at the Ravens defense. Watch Roquan Smith. The man is flying to Saquon Barkley. Just watch him on this play for a second if you're watching. That man does not believe that ball is not going to him for a good 5 seconds. He is convinced it is going to Saquon Barkley. There's also an Eagles Ravens safety or slot corner who also goes over there. So you end up 4-on-4. And this is the perfect call because the Ravens are in too high. So basically, there is no one at linebacker. There is no one in the middle of the field at all because of the personnel the Eagles are in and the way the Ravens play this. So the Eagles end up, and this is why, by the way, quarterbacks in the run game are a cheat code, and I say it every single week. When people talk about Saquon Barkley being amazing, if you do not give Jalen Hurts credit for this run game, you're not watching film, because Jalen Hurts is a huge part of the run game. They end up 5 on 4 because Jalen Hurts is a free man, and it's just such an easy play. Both of the Ravens safeties come downhill as quick as they possibly can. I think he actually scores on this, by the way, but he's very close anyway. I know they don't give it to him, but he looked very close. But the Eagles get what? 7? No, it's more yards, isn't it? The Eagles get how many yards on this one? They pick up 3rd and 5 or something. And the Ravens safeties cannot play this any quicker. Look how quickly they diagnose this, and it's still not quick enough. This play by itself doesn't work without the earlier throw, in my opinion, Saquon Barkley, because you're playing against a very instinctual linebacker in Roquan Smith. He knows what the Eagles did earlier on, and he basically runs out there like a lunatic to stop the play. And yeah, Austin commented it would be cool if they could gather information on the plays that work. That is a problem at the moment. But I do think some of what they're doing earlier on is to set up what's going later on. And whatever you think of the early struggles, and we will get into it shortly, the fact is, as the game goes on, the Eagles have a real feel what the defense are doing, and they really do adjust their game plan every week. And it's cool to see. And I thought that play was really cool. It's not a play we've seen a lot this year, and they called it at the right time, big 3rd down, and they knew what they were going to get from the Ravens, which was awesome. So there you go. That's my first point.
Yeah. T Grant with a donation here on YouTube. So appreciate that. Absolutely. Thanks for chiming in here. Thanks for following along with the show.
Legend.
Jump into our Patreon if you're not. That's a lot cooler perks probably than donating in the YouTube, but it's a subscription thing. I get it, but would love to see you in there as well. But
Being the first person ever on a podcast to say, yeah, the donation's cool, but maybe don't donate, do this instead. What a man.
I'm just trying to get the people the most for their money. To get the people the most for their money. We're watching out for you guys.
Sorry, Shane, I'm going to say one more thing because I'm going on this week. But T Grant raised a really good point about film, and it's a flaw with me and Shane. It's a flaw. Film guys don't see no huddle very well. So you have to watch the game live as well, because no huddle is not easy to spot. And I think the Eagles run no huddle really effectively when they do it, because they quite often sequence plays that they run earlier on. And it's hard to see on the film because you can't always see no huddle as easily.
That statement probably makes no sense to anyone that's never watched All-22.
Yeah, true. I reckon most of our listeners do.
Probably.
Do they? I don't know. Try in the chat. The most of you watch
All-22? If you don't, just in case, it's literally like a list of plays, and you click it, and it shows you the sideline view, like when they're at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, so robotic.
If they go no huddle, you can't tell unless you're paying super close attention to like the time elapsing on the clock or something. But so he said that Hurts no huddled for both touchdown drives. So that's very true. We also had a comment coming in here. I think I don't remember who it was from now. There it is. Austin said that Jeff McClain asked Kellen Moore if they should just try going unscripted. I don't think Kellen Moore appreciated that question. We're going to get into that. And that's actually my next point. So I want to talk about the Eagles' early pass game struggles. And it's not just an issue in this game. This season, in the first quarter, the Eagles' drop back EPA is 30th in the NFL, and their drop back success rate is 32nd. So they are the 3rd worst team by EPA and the worst team by success rate in their passing game in the first quarter. In quarters 2 for 4, they rank 3rd and 6th, respectively. So they go from literally the worst in the NFL to like top 5 in the NFL just by getting out of the first quarter. Why is that? In this game, I think there's design issues and there are execution issues. And so I want to walk you through some of what I saw early in the game from the Eagles offense. And so you get a 12-yard run by Saquon Barkley on the first play of the game, and everybody's mad that you don't come back and run it on the next play. You can't just run it every play. There has to be an element of the passing game. And so what the Eagles are going to do, and I think this is like a good play. I think it's a good design. You're going to motion Dallas Goedert over, and then they run like a sit route with a deep out route, and then they're going to swing Dallas Goedert out in front of Saquon Barkley. And so you essentially have, you're going to look at this sit route, and then you can throw to this little swing. It's a great way to get Barkley the ball in space. Now, the way this plays out, Hurts is late. Like, if he's going to throw this ball, it has to be out now. He's hit his back foot. The ball needs to be out. And he doesn't. He bounces. He's late. So that's part of it. Execution, we're late. Execution, when Roquan Smith squeezes this corner route, you have to know there is one flat defender to play an out route and a swing route with a blocker in front. You could make either of these throws, and either of them are going to be wide open. So, one, if Hurts is going to throw the sit route, he's late. 2, he shouldn't throw it. He should literally throw either of the others, and he just doesn't do it. It's really cool design. It's bad execution. And so then we get to 3rd and 6, because on 2nd down, you scheme up a touch for your running back 3 who has 0 receptions this year and didn't play a snap the rest of the game. And that's a design issue. And you get to 3rd and 6. And on 3rd and 6, the Eagles are going to motion Britton Covey across the formation. And you get Marlon Humphrey traveling with him. And you're single high. You're thinking this is probably man coverage. They're going to run an out route, and they're going to tag a vertical route. The problem is this is not man coverage, and it's actually not even single high. The Ravens are going to spin their safeties, so I think the Eagles are fooled, and you end up with split field coverage. And Hurts is going to try to throw this ball that would be open, the outbreaker Britton Covey. And honestly, if this isn't 3rd and 6, this is a good throw. Like, he throws that, he pulls him back away from the hit from the cornerback that's trapping the flat. If this is 2nd down, now you're at 3rd and 2. I mean, Covey doesn't end up catching it, and that's because Covey's not a great receiver. Let's call a spade a spade. But there's design issues in this play too. There's execution. So it's a good throw, but also, like, this cornerback is sitting on this route. If you rip this whole shot right now, there's no chance anybody can get there. And so you could do that. But design-wise, why are we using A.J. Brown? A play after we schemed up a touch for our 3rd-string running back. Why are we scheming up a touch for our punt returner when you've got A.J. Brown just jogging off the line on a little curl route that he knows isn't going to be thrown backside? Like, why not just have A.J. Brown run a post, or have him run a dig route, or put A.J. Brown over here on this vertical route, somebody that Hurts trust, and it's like, hey, you're one-on-one, I'm going to throw it to you because you're A.J. Brown. So there's design issues. There are execution issues all over this first drive. Then we go to the 2nd drive, 2nd and 6. Just watch this route concept and tell me if you can figure out what it is.
Yeah, it's meshed on wrong.
Anytime you can line 3 guys up all inside the hashes within like 6 yards of each other, that's just great. And so somebody or multiple someone's run the wrong route, and Hurts just has to bail out and throw it away. And so now we get to 3rd and 6. 2nd drive, 3rd and 6. Jalen Hurts still has not completed a pass in the game. And we're going to run verticals. And it's a good look for verticals. It's single high. We're playing off coverage. They run the little stutter and go to A.J. Brown. But again, and I can't stress this enough, Jalen Hurts has not completed a pass yet. Why just run the comeback route or the curl route that you're so good at timing with and get in rhythm? Like, Hurts is a great deep ball thrower. And if this is a pass that happens in the 2nd or the 3rd quarter, I think he completes it. But we haven't completed a pass yet. Everything's off. And we go to a really difficult throw against a cornerback that's in off coverage. So the Eagles are starting slow every week. And some of it is on the script. Some of it is on Hurts. Hurts does not execute plays as well in the first quarter as he does as the game goes along. And I think that's something you have to know. And I think it's something that you need to scheme around a bit. Like I'm talking about there, throw that comeback route. He's really good at that route. It's not as high difficulty of a throw. And, they tried to get him that swing route to Barkley, and he didn't take it. He didn't get off that sit route. But that's something the Eagles are going to have to figure out, because you don't want to be in the business of spotting teams 10-point leads when you get into the postseason.
Yeah. The Eagles' early struggles are legit. They are real. It's not a joke. It's not like, oh, the first drive isn't a touchdown, and those numbers that everyone likes to quote. Like, it's a real problem against really good teams. You can't give up the first quarter and just expect to come back. This is the first week I really noticed Hurts struggle in particular to read things early on. And it just makes me wonder how much he needs to get into a rhythm as just an individual, and whether the Eagles need to do something about that, run him early on. I don't know. Does he need to get hit? I'm almost half joking, but do they need to do something to wake him up? because when he gets in a rhythm, he looks really, really good. And they really need to consider what they're doing, like strategically, psychologically, because they can't keep starting like this, because once they get over it, then everything's fine. But the offense is so blatantly basic at the start of the game, Shane. It's so obviously like a watered down version. And it's all very well saying that, as I have, you're sequencing stuff for later on in the game. But at a certain point, that's not good enough, because you're relying on your defense holding up for the first quarter and a half and then you getting it together. I'm going to combine my points, look at your point. We're going to go a bit sciencey. Let's go maths. Let's do a little bit of science, Shane. School time it is. The NFL football field is 100 and whatever yards it is. Good comment. Someone's saying we're teachers. Yeah. So a little basic, very, very easy way of watching film. And I always makes me laugh when people talk about play calling and like, this is a good play, this is a bad play. Like, 4 verts is terrible, but 4 verts is good when you complete it. Like, there's no bad plays, there's no good plays, but what any good offense should do, and this is something that good offensive gurus talk about online a lot, is you want to make the defense cover every single blade of grass. It's a very generic cliche phrase, but you imagine you're playing football at any level, youth, high school, college. If you're on defense, what do you not want to do? You don't want to have to cover every single inch of grass, which is why does it get harder to score in the red zone? Because there's less field you have to attack. Like, the defense is close together. So as an offense, I find it very hard to judge good play or bad play, because there's no way of me judging good play or bad play. What can I judge? I can judge the timing, I can judge sequencing, but what I can look at is how you stress a defense in different ways, because it's a really easy thing. Anyone that does watch All-22, or even doesn't watch All-22, just watches a game live and ever wonders, like, how do I judge what a team is calling? Look at how much on a generic play that they stretch a defense in different ways. Because it's a really easy thing to spot. And I'll give you 2 examples. You've already shown, I think you showed one of these plays, Shane. I'm sure you did. You've shown the one where they run the wrong route. So I won't do the wrong route. I'll do the one on play 3 on my film thread. I'm asking for while you're getting changed, which is amazing. So you're just sitting there with half a jumper on. Love it. So play 3, right? This is just 3 contacts. Now, I don't know if someone's meant to release at the flat, but if you just pause it and when they run the 3 routes here, I want you to imagine you are a defensive coordinator. You are not stressing anything. Look how close together the Ravens defenders are. There is nothing, and I haven't got the mouse here, so I can't do it, but there is nothing around the top, like 30, around that yard line. There's nothing around the flat, the 20, 30. There is every single Eagles receiver within, 15 yards in a straight line. Now, I don't care what the play call is, I don't care who you're judging. That, to me, is not good offensive design. If you want to look at, because it's just simply too simple to cover. It's too easy. And Hurts bails, and live, Hurts running out of a pocket again. Hurts getting sacked on 3rd down. Clearly not going through his reads. Watch the All-22. There's nothing he can do here. You can get into the weeds and you get a bit more technical and say, does a play have options against every coverage? So some offensive guys don't like mesh because it's crap against zone. Fair enough. I still like mesh because I think you can run it against zone if you do it a certain way. So you can have like philosophical differences about a good play call, bad play call, blah, blah, blah. Do you like pure progression, whatever. Basic fundamental level. Look at how they stress a defense. I'm going to give you a different play now, Shane. So I want to give you film play number 7 on my thread. Another 3rd down, about the same distance, 3rd and long. Now, pause it once they run their concept here. This is called stressing a defense. You have a running back all the way into the right-hand side of the flat. So you're completely stressing the right-hand flat. You have a guy in the middle of the field. You have a couple of guys in the midfield. You have a guy breaking deep. Now, all of a sudden, look at how they are stressing a defense. Look how spread out. Just circle like the Ravens' left cornerback and right cornerbacks, and the gap, or the guy on Barkley, for example, linebacker and their safeties. Like, you could take any defenders you want. The gaps between them are huge. You don't need to be a scientist, Shane. You want to stress a defense by spreading them out. That is the whole point of an offensive design, because you make it easier on your quarterback, and then you do give more options. You also make it easier outside of structure, because if Hurts does have room to get out and scramble, you then give him room. You create more plays outside of structure. So I find it very frustrating, the early half stuff, because I see plays like this and I think, why are they not running more of that? And the big problem with quick game is that quick game doesn't stress a defense vertically either. And the really, really good offensive coordinators, like one of the things that I like doing in the offseason is watching good offensive minds. And I always come back to Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is unbelievable. And it's because he uses motion and shifts, not randomly, but because he stresses you in different ways. And when you watch a team try and sometimes cover a Sean McVay offense, you see the gaps between the defense are huge. And if you're trying to run like a Fangio spot drop style, you want your defenders to be as close as you possibly can, because it means the gaps they have to cover are as small as possible, which is why every defense is better in the red zone. It's not like rocket science because the gaps are smaller. So when the Eagles spread the defense out, they look really good. Sometimes the Eagles don't. And loads of comments coming in like, is it a Kellen Moore thing? Is it a Jalen thing? It's a both thing. I can only assume that Kellen Moore is calling basic stuff because it's easier for Hurts early on. And Hurts is not in a rhythm. Whereas later on, he calls better stuff. But it's no longer an excuse. Like, you can't just write off the early drives because Hurts isn't getting into a rhythm. I think he was 0-4 of this game again and then went like 10 of 11. So they're not getting him into a rhythm anyway. The quick stuff isn't working. It's not like they're going 3 and out, but Hurts is going 2 for 2 for 8 yards and at least he's getting reps. They're not. So they need to have a fundamental like reboot in their first 15 plays, and they need to make the offense more spaced out, or whatever you want to call it, because it's so obvious when you look at some of the plays. I didn't even use the play, Shane, where there's clearly a busted coverage, as in like the two players run in the wrong direction because they're both standing next to each other. And yeah, Austin, they were RPOs and play action, but that doesn't necessarily mean like they're not spread out. Like sometimes the Eagles RPOs, actually, they really spread a defense horizontally, because you might get the offensive line going to the right, a guy going to the flat, a slant going to the middle. It doesn't have to be like any quick game stuff is never going to have a real vertical element, but you can still really, really space them out horizontally. And those free comebacks or free hitches, it doesn't do anything. Even if they complete the pass, I'll say I don't like the concept because it doesn't give you anything to worry about as a defensive coordinator. There's my rant about the Eagles spacing, which took too long, but it's something I feel really strongly about. Anyone who doesn't watch a lot of film, just when you watch on Sunday, just watch how a team can space a defense out, because that's basically what every offense is trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so it's an issue early in games. Let's fix it. My last 2 points, I'm going to fix the Eagles' opening script issues. So
do it.
If you have a quarterback that is struggling with some of those concepts, maybe you don't see him well early in the game, you know what a great thing to do is get him on the run. Don't have him try to read a whole defense. Have him read one person and keep the ball or hand it off. But I've heard quarterback after quarterback after quarterback talk about how, you know, once you get hit in a game, then it really feels like you're playing. And so, you know, you guys know this concept if you've been listening to our show for a while, but it's QB counter bash. The Eagles ran this, I think, they probably ran it more than 3 times. I'm going to show you 3.
They ran counter a lot. Sorry to jump in. They ran basically all their good plays were counter except the Saquon TD. They ran counter a hell of a lot in this game.
Yeah, this is, I believe that. So Tony Romo called out in the second quarter Hurts misreading one and said they would come back to it. And that one wasn't counter bash. It was just counter because the pullers went with the running back. But they did come back to it. And you're reading number 95 here off the edge. He doesn't crash. And so Hurts keeps it. And now all of a sudden you're out running behind pullers and you're getting a first down. You're alive. You get the blood flowing. Like, this is thing you can do this early in a game, right? This is how the Eagles offense kind of got jump started. That and something else we'll go over. But then same thing. We're reading number 40 on the right side of the screen. And this time he crashes. And so Hurts just gives it off to Barkley. You can still have Barkley involved in this. You get your offensive line out on the move. You get your quarterback on the move. And then they run it another time. And this time it looks like to me he's reading the linebacker instead of the end, just based on where he's looking, because they're not trying to get outside as much as they're going to get vertically here after Hurts keeps it. But 23 crashes to the outside. That looks like who he's reading to me. He's not really looking at the end, but I don't know for sure. And right up the middle. Like, you can do this early in a game. If your quarterback is struggling to get quick game going, don't go to quick game on your opening drive. Go to some of the QB run game and get your offensive line out on the move. And I think that's going to be one of the things that will help a lot. I'd like to see that earlier in the games. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's basically what I would do early on as well. it seems pretty obvious that what they're doing in the passing game isn't working, but also the running game sometimes a little bit basic early on as well. But I think some of that is just they're taking time to get used to it. So maybe go to like more 2022 stuff, more RPOs. By the way, you can build up if you don't get called for offensive lineman downfield, which is a whole other debate. You can run an offense at a counter. Who was the guy? Was it Lincoln Riley a few years ago? Basically, just every time I turned on the TV, they were running stuff out of counter. You can run loads of RPOs off it. You can run slant flat, but you can run stuff down the field if you want. The Dolphins did it a couple of years ago, and it was more radical, where Tua was throwing down the field off of RPOs. Like the Eagles need to try and find a blend between making it easier for Hurts, and I have a weird suspicion they might want to run him early on. I think maybe he needs to get hit. Like I don't know. I don't want the good guy to get hit badly, but maybe he needs to like slide down, not Trevor Lawrence style. From the weekend, because oh my goodness, I'm not going to talk about that hit because I'll get annoyed because I thought it was a nonsense hit, and I think D'Amico Ryans is a moron, sadly, for how he's handled it. But anyway, like I think they need to find a way to get him in a rhythm, because more than anything, I feel like it is a problem with getting Jalen going. Right, I'm staring at the time, Shane, and I do need to get a move on. So I'm going to go with my final point, which is very, very specific, very short. A lot of people didn't notice this live. I didn't notice it live until I saw the snap counts come out, and I saw Tyler Steen. Did someone get injured? I was like, who got injured? So I was like, Landon Dickerson. No, he didn't get injured. Lane Johnson. No, he didn't get injured. Why is Tyler Steen playing? And it's because as if the Eagles' run game wasn't diverse enough, Shane, they decided to go full screw it, and let's just throw something else for the defense to have to watch in preparation for the Eagles this weekend. Because as if their gap scheme, zone scheme, as if their RPOs, their QB run game, their Saquon Barkley being a freak, outside zone, inside zone, split zone, counter bash, you name it. They played trap last week, crunch last week. They thought, you know what? Let's throw some 6 O-linemen out there as well and run some counter with 2 tight ends and 6 O-linemen and just absolutely batter the defense at the end of the game. So play 10 on my film pred, Shane. I will end with this week. And it's very simply, it's counter again. Remind me, is it pistol or under center? It is pistol counter, but they have Tyler Steen next to Lane Johnson. And you now have 2 tight ends and 6 offensive linemen. This is bully ball. And look at CJ Uzama. Oh my goodness. What are we doing here? Like, that's not what I expected. When you want to talk about like running the ball down the defense throats at the end and breaking their spirit, yeah, let's just go 6 O-line. And by the way, Tyler Steen is good. We're not talking 6 O-linemen with like an average backup. Tyler Steen would start for pretty much every team, I imagine. This is like proper bully ball. We're winning. You can't stop us running. Take it. I love that. And it just gives other teams something else to think about next week. There will be defensive coordinators in meeting rooms going, right, so what do we do when they go 6 O-line? And I love the fact they're just throwing it out there at the end of the game when the game's basically over. Let's just try this, as if the running game's not diverse enough. So a little scheme note, if you saw Tyler Steen out there, yeah, I think they threw him in right at the very end. I know someone commented saying about Goddard getting injured, so it could have been just 13 personnel replacement. But also, like, you could just go 12 personnel. Like, it's not something you had to do. So I think the fact they threw Steen out there, they obviously focused. They obviously prepped that a little bit in the week. So there we go. I think it's cool seeing Tyler Steen out there and going 6 offensive linemen. And that is me, Unchained. So finish us off with your final point.
All right. My final point is the other thing that you can do early in the game. If you want to start the game stronger, we're going to run the quarterback. And now that our run game is going, of course, our run game is always a threat. We're going to unlock the middle of the field, and we're going to do it using under center play action. We're going to use it in shotgun with RPOs. This is how the Eagles got going. And in this game, Jalen Hurts utilizing play action, which I'm pretty sure SIS charts RPOs as play action as well, was 6 of 6 for 70 yards and a touchdown. He was 5 of 13 for 48 yards without it. And so just do it. Like build the whole script off of under center play action, RPOs, read options, those sorts of things early in the game. And I think you'll get a lot more success. But here they go under center and they're going to like fake a toss to the top of the screen. And they've got AJ Brown isolated at the bottom of the screen. AJ Brown at the bottom of the screen, by the way, on Nate Wiggins. And Nate Wiggins is fantastic. Nate Wiggins has no chance to beat AJ Brown on a slant route with no help anywhere. And this toss away means there's no help anywhere. You're running into free space, and Jalen Hurts puts the ball on money. You want to throw a quick game. That's quick game. And that's quick game that's going to work because you have to respect the Eagles' run game. And then you follow it up with an RPO. We're going to get an RPO slant flat. Again, we're targeting A.J. Brown. Later in the game, they're going to throw a touchdown to Dallas Goedert on the flat part of this concept, although A.J. Brown doesn't really run a slant there. But you just read this out. The defensive end crashed in, right? So we can't hand this ball off. But we also know the linebacker stepped in. We're throwing into this void. Again, attacking the middle of the field. Boom, no chance. Like, you can get Hurts in a rhythm doing this way. And then my favorite one, they go under center, play action. We're going to get a dig route from A.J. Brown. And I want you to watch. I believe this is Roquan Smith. No, this is Roquan Smith. Anyway, watch these guys in the box here. It doesn't even work. Like, watch where they start out at. Yeah, sorry, Roquan is the guy I want you to watch. Watch where Roquan is at the snap of the ball. He's right here on the hash at the 36-yard line. Watch where he is at the end of the play fake. He's right there on the 36-yard line. He did not bite on the play fake. A.J. Brown's going to run this dig route, and because he didn't bite, he's sinking here. This throw should come out now. Look where Hurts is lined up. You throw this off the break, and it's not there. And Hurts sits on it, and he's going to throw it second window right in between the linebackers on the logo. That's an incredible read.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you. That play can't be true. It must be AI generated because there was motion. It was under center and Hurts over the middle of the field. The people I read on Twitter in the offseason told me that the offense was the way it was last year because he physically couldn't do any of those three things. So that must be a fake play because it has motion in it. He hates motion, Shane. We know he hates motion. He can't throw to the middle of the field because they never called it last year. And he can't go under center. Can't turn his back on the defense. Doesn't like doing it. Yeah. So unfortunately, that must be an AI-generated play you've got there. So your Game Pass must have broke.
Yeah, it might have. I need to get on that international Game Pass.
Yeah, because it just can't be true. Because we know. People told me, Shane. People told me that he couldn't do any of it. And very smart people, Shane, like Stephen Maurice, who ranks Hurts very fairly every week. They told me things that unfortunately that can't be true. So sorry to the listeners for ending with a fake play. But we'll be there next week. We'll get normal plays where he's in the shotgun, throws it deep to A.J. Brown, and he just catches it because nothing's to do with Hurts. And then we'll rank him below Derek Carr. And we'll do proper analysis next week. We will be back. We will be back.
Absolutely. We'll do better next week. But yeah, I mean, if you want to fix the opening script, in my opinion, that's how you do it. Give Hurts simple reads on a defensive end in the read option game and the RPO game. Get him targeting the middle of the field. And then once you're in a rhythm, once you've hit a few throws, once you've had your run, slide, get hit, whatever, then you can start to run more of these timing concepts. You can start to take more of these deep balls. You have to walk before you run. And I don't think the Eagles have done a good job of that. And I think it's an easy fix. But, we're going into week 14, and it hasn't been fixed yet. Hopefully it's coming. So that's all I've got. Jonny, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, final thoughts. Firstly, this was definitely the best podcast I've ever done. Like, comments are going absolutely nuts. So I appreciate all you listeners because I remember doing a lot of podcasts and 5 years ago and typing tweets and writing articles and getting very little comments. And it takes a long time to get to the place where people care about what you say on the internet. And that's how it should be. So I really appreciate it. I am going to very quickly do it, Shane. I need to go. But I'm going to do it before. I'm going to type in Stephen Maurice QB rankings. No one else do it. I don't like to moan. Let's see. Because Hurts has won like 8 on the trot. So here we go. Get your predictions in. Right, he's not top 10. That's okay. Kyler Murray 7. Geno Smith 8. Geno Smith's awesome, to be fair. Dak Prescott 9. I mean, he didn't really play this year. CJ Stroud 10, interesting. I feel like Stroud's not had a very good year, even though I really like him. Jordan Love 11, Trevor Lawrence 12. Yeah, Big Trev still there. I watch a lot of Jags game. I don't know what I'm saying if I say Trevor Lawrence had a good year. Jared Goff 13. Yep. Oh, Jalen Hurts is 14. That's probably the highest. He's admitted defeat that he's better than Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy. Yeah, I mean Brock Purdy. He hates Brock Purdy as well. Derek Carr is at 19. I mean, wow, he's gone up above. Wow, he has Jaden Daniels at 22. Jesus, Daniels hasn't been great of late, but 22 is interesting. Jaden Daniels or Brock Purdy or Derek Carr this year. I think I'd go Jaden Daniels, or Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is 15 still, man. That seems high.
Yeah.
But Jalen Hurts has cracked top 14. Do you know what? I'd say anywhere top 12, 14. And I'll be honest, I'm sort of okay with Hurts. I'd have him top 10. But I think top 12, I can accept. I can live with different opinions. So he must be playing well because he's gone up to the top. He's gone up to top 14. So he has gone up. So do you know what? It's quite funny because on the website he has the stats that matter as well. I don't know if you've ever read it. And he has EPA per dropback, success rate, and completion percentage above expectation. So Hurts obviously ranks 14, and then the numbers he has are EPA per dropback 14th, success rate 12th, completion percentage over expectation 2nd. So you're like, okay, 14th, 12th, 2nd. 14th's a bit harsh. Trevor Lawrence, 22nd, 22nd, 27th. He has CJ Stroud 10th, 24th, 30th, 30th. Dak Prescott, 26th, 24th, 26th. Like, why even have the stats? Like, either use the stats or don't use the stats, because the guys you've got above him in your stats that you use in your own website just rank way below Hurts. But anyway, I digress. I will not mind 14th too much. Yeah. There we go. It does mention, by the way, he doesn't get blitzed often because he not comfortable reading the defense. I mean, doesn't get blitzed often very much because he kills teams against the blitz. Doesn't extend to throws to other areas of the field. He's got the middle of the field thing there. But there you go. He does say sound decision maker. Not that. The thing that I hate, when someone gives someone praise, but then I really need to get off it. I don't know why I'm still talking. But we literally said we're going to do more than hour 15, and I've got around again. But when we talk about when you give someone a compliment, but then you give them a backhand at the end as well, just to let them know that yeah. So he says lots of nice things, and then he goes nice interception total. He avoids the middle of the field. That's why he doesn't throw. That's why he doesn't throw interceptions. Okay, and then he says, but you put all of that together, but he does say, and you get a spectacularly average quarterback in today's NFL. And I'm like, however you describe Jalen Hurts, I feel like average is just not the word I'd ever use. That's just never even if you don't think he's very good, you accept that the highs are high. I feel like just a spectacularly average quarterback is such a not how I would ever describe him. But there you go. Oh my goodness, I've not used his website before. You can sort by attribute. Oh no, I'm going to be on hours. Oh dear. Please don't tell me he ranks them by attribute. That's going to be bad for my mental health when I look at where he. Oh no, we need to end the podcast, Shane, because I'm going to be looking at where he ranks him for decision making and.
Before we do
that. Oh no, it's gonna all descend into chaos on here.
Hurts, we got to get you out of here so you can watch the Arsenal game. But
yeah, actually, it doesn't seem to sort by. It doesn't seem to because he's still 14. So maybe it's okay. Unless he's just 14th and everything.
Jalen Hurts can't beat the blitz, quote unquote. This season, Jalen Hurts average separation against the blitz is the 4th lowest in the league. So only 3 quarterbacks in the NFL have dealt with less separation against the blitz. Where do you think he ranks in EPA per dropback against the blitz?
Top 5?
4th.
There we go.
So he has the 4th hardest throws in the NFL against the blitz, and he does it at the 4th most efficient rate. So, yeah, there you go. Love the narratives. As Tua said incorrectly, I'm ready to kill some narratives. He did not, in fact, kill narratives when they went to Green Bay, but Johnny's out here killing narratives live on the podcast. You love to see it.
Right. I got to get out of here, Shane. I got to go. Legends for listening. Thank you, guys.
That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening to us moan about officials and moan about quarterback rankings and break down some film along the way. The comments were awesome, on fire today. Really appreciate you guys. Make sure you are downloading the Eagles Pinpool podcast feed. Lots of great shows coming your way. Also, come check out our Patreon later this afternoon. I will have my Jalen Hurts past game review up. I'll be able to spend a little more time drawing up some of the stuff for you guys. So check that out. You can get a free 1-week trial. I think you'll want to stick around, but we really appreciate you guys. Check us out on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Johnny Page 9, and we will catch you guys next week to break down an Eagles victory over the Carolina Panthers. Go Birds.